Good morning, everyone. It really is a pleasure for us to be here and to have you join us to discuss the possibilities of how CTE can be utilized in your schools to better empower students through some positive outcomes. So, if you've not had a chance to meet, my name's Tony Harrell. I currently serve as the Associate Commissioner for K-12 Strategies. I was just newly named the associate commissioner part, but still in retaining priority or a majority of my role is to serve as the state director for career and technical education. So really looking forward to the conversation. I have Sam Rourke, who is our director of outreach and implementation, assisting me today. Throughout the early part of this presentation, Sam is going to be dropping some resources and links in the chat that you might want to reference at a later time. Once we get a little bit further into the presentation, though, just to kind of be forewarned, the chat will be closing, and then so that we can start accepting questions for the question and answer session of the presentation. So would encourage you to kind of open up the chat and kind of keep that as a part of what we're doing here at the very beginning. So as you may know, as this past summer, as a part of HEA 1002, the Authority for Career and Technical Education was transferred over to the Commission for Higher Education. And while the emphasis for CTE is often on K-12 programs, the work that we have done around redesigning programs of study really has helped to kind of blur the lines between K-12 and post-secondary. And most importantly, I think it's the idea that the outcomes that we're trying to achieve through career and technical education fit in so well with the goals of the Commission going forward. So we are really excited to be a part of the Commission. We've had the chance to present as a part of the Student Advocates Conference before, but being able to do this as a member or a part of the Commission has been an exciting experience. One thing you'll notice across the bottom of the screen here, we are ready to unveil a new career and technical education logo. This logo, when you see this, you'll know that is information then that is coming from our team here at the Commission. But there was a couple of things that we were really trying to do with this. The first is we were very intentional about we wanted it to have the same look and feel as Learn More Indiana and the 21st Century Scholars Program. One, we wanted to just let everybody know that, hey, we are fully integrated into the Commission, and there is that alignment there between the other programs in career and technical education. And then the second thing that I think is really exciting is when you look at the symbols around the ampersand sign there, you've got the gear as well as the electrical schematic that both honors our traditional like skilled trades programs in CTE, but also kind of gives a nod or recognizes some of the new era CTE programs like IT, healthcare, business, and even education. In the chat here, so one of the first things that we are going to do, we'd love to have you take just a moment here, drop a few words into the chat or a phrase into the chat of what comes to mind when you hear CTE, or what do you think CTE is? And I'm just going to pause for a few seconds here so that I can see some of the responses, and we'll kind of go from there. Yeah. So I was really excited to see career and technical education kind of associated with innovation for several of you as you were putting that into the chat box there. I think that is something that we've really tried to do. as we look at, career exploration and career preparation, I think those are all things that kind of go through this. I think the one thing that is also exciting is that we're starting to get away from that perception of CTE just being vocational ed. That is something that we've worked on for quite a few years to get away from. So it's good to see that. And certainly some other elements there about like graduation requirements, work-based learning, credential attainment. All of those things are elements of what we bring to the table as an educational model. So just wanted to share here, so many times when we get into these conversations, people struggle to know, like, well, I don't even know what CTE is. And it's really hard, or at least I have found it hard, to come up with like a 30-second elevator pitch of what CTE is, because it encompasses so many different aspects. But as we look on the components of CTE over there to the right, and what goes into a program of study and career pathways, which is really a term that is kind of synonymous with each other. But you look at the components of the delivery model, and you see career coaching and navigation, you see work-based learning, you see these education to workforce partnerships that are so vital to the success of CTE programs. There's a lot that goes into that. But then also you see in the yellow and the orange and the gray there, you see the different skills that students can acquire and develop through their programs of study and the CTE work that they do. So I hope that as you look at this, this kind of help build that idea of, okay, why CTE at the commission, but also, why is CTE so critical as we're having conversations around redesigning high school, trying to get more students involved with career pathways. It really does provide a tremendous opportunity for all students. And I think that's where the one last thing that I'd really like to emphasize here when we're talking about just CTE in general is that it truly is for all students. And as we're looking at this, I think there's always kind of been that perception a lot of times that, well, CTE is the program that is for all those students that don't want to go to college. And in our economy and in our society today, that, if you're going to have a career that provides a living wage, it's really going to be necessary for you to have some form of post-secondary education and training. And the more that we could start to think about CTE maybe as kind of that alternative path to that post-secondary education and training, the better off that we will be. And I think we have made strides towards that in Indiana as we're looking at this. You look at this nationally, 72% of CTE concentrators go on to enroll in post-secondary education full-time. I think that is something that, when we think back to the commission's goals about college going rate, that is something that we truly want to emphasize with our CTE programs, especially given the post-secondary connections with our CTE programs that we now have through the next level programs of study. The other thing, and I think this is really important to look at, is the number of dual credit or dual enrollment opportunities that high school students have through CTE. We are currently around 35% of all Indiana CTE concentrators earn 9 or more dual credits. And that number has, the raw number of that has actually gone up over the last several years, even though that percentage of concentrators has gone down just because we have so many more concentrators now. But we have a significant number of students that are earning 9 or more dual credits in a college pathway now. And again, if you take away nothing else from this presentation today, I would encourage you to take away the idea that, look, CTE can be for all students, and that CTE is college. Students are earning college credits towards a stackable, transferable credential, and that's what we're looking for all students. we wanted to dive a little bit more into what a career pathway looks like, and how does that career pathway work with the next level programs of study here. You can see that on the far left-hand side of the screen, we're looking at the aspects of career exploration. I think one thing with the kind of this new vision of CTE, and as we start to think about this with the next level programs of study, is we would like for students to start that career exploration, as early as possible. I mean, this is a big part of the emphasis that you hear around career coaching and navigation. But if we can help students find their passion area earlier in high school, or maybe even in middle school, by introducing them to a career that they've never thought of, then they have a better chance to take full advantage of the next level programs of study and our CTE programs to complete these credentials, to earn those college credits, and really kind of jumpstart their journey along that career pathway. But so when you see the yellow and the blue, you can look at those. You can look at the that really represents the next level programs of study. The yellow always kind of represents our CTE concentrators, and the navy blue represents our capstone courses that go along with each program of study. But the most important part here is all of this leads directly to post-secondary education and training. And you can see up above there this idea that we move from stackable credentials, and we're going to go into a little bit more details about what that means, up through associate degrees. And then in our case, we have, in Indiana's case, we have so many degrees that then are the TSAP programs that are truly transferable and applicable to those bachelor's degrees. So wanted you to have a feel for how would a pathway work, and where does NLPS kind of fall into that mix. And I feel like this is probably taking a step back a little bit, but I want to go back and just talk about the next level programs of study. For those that have been around for a while and have kind of been with us, you know that the reason why we had to call them next level programs of study is when they were introduced, we had about 3 different pathway models. And if we didn't give them a name, we'd have a tough time with people ever knowing what we were talking about. But as a part of these programs of study, the thing to keep in mind here is there's always, every program of study that we've developed has the same structure. There are 3 concentrator courses. Each of those concentrator courses are designed to be 2-credit courses or year-long courses. And they are all prerequisites for the capstone course. Part of the reason for this is we were trying to create greater consistency in the skills that students were having the opportunity to master as part of the programs of study. So most students, or nearly every student that goes through this is going to complete all 3 of those concentrator courses. And then if they have time in their schedule, or if they can work it in, they're going to have that chance to take that capstone course. This capstone course can lead to additional credential attainment, as well as we've embedded time into that capstone course for work-based learning. So we're kind of showing you the same thing in various ways, but I think this is the one that really resonates with a lot of people when they look at CTE and the programs of study and what we've tried to accomplish here. Again, I'm going to, this yellow point, the yellow represents our CTE concentrator courses. In this diagram, those CTE concentrator courses really represent that first logical exit point for a CTE program of study and for a student. And in this case, our example here is from healthcare. So that student takes 3 different CTE courses. In this case, it'd be Principles of Healthcare, Medical Terminology, and our CNA course. And that would give them the opportunity to go out and to obtain that CNA license and to start practicing and working in that field. But then as they go along with that, so in addition to just completing the courses, they have the chance to get the CNA, they have a chance to earn dual credits, There's some embedded work-based learning within those courses because of the clinical aspects of the CNA. And then you see that with the capstone course, they can use that capstone course to take additional post-secondary courses, possibly pick up an additional certification. In this case, maybe even move towards like a certified clinical medical assistant. If they can take that coursework, that can directly stack into a technical certificate for a licensed practical nurse, and then hopefully even go on to a bachelor's degree and become a registered nurse. So this idea of trying to create multiple exit points for students, while at the same time really digging into and taking advantage of the stackability of the credentials. And I've got one more example here that I just want to go through with you from business. And so many times we talk about CTE again in terms of welding, but I think it's really important to look at some of these other programs and how this might work. But same type of thing here, that if I'm going through an accounting program of study, you know, I might be able to come out after the concentrator courses and go work as a bank teller. I would have some of the basic accounting courses that I would need. You then you get into the capstone course. Now you're getting into the certificates, you're getting into the technical certificates or the certificate of graduations that are offered through Ivy Tech and VU. You can then stack that into an associate's degree, which can then stack into a bachelor's degree. And then as you see though, each one of those exit points can be associated with the next level up or the next step on a career ladder. I was going to pause there, okay, for just a moment. Just as a reminder, the chat is getting ready to close if it is not already closed. But at this point, the question and answer portion of the event software is available to you. So if you have some questions or that you would like to ask that we'll try to address here throughout the presentation, by all means, please put those in there as we move forward. So the next part that we want to talk about here is really those outcomes of a program of study, and what considerations should a school or a career center or anyone for that matter that is trying to deliver one of these programs of studies have in terms of how do we make our programs as valuable to students as possible. And there is a program that is taking place at the national level. The Raise the Bar program is a joint venture between the U.S. Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Commerce, as well as the U.S. Department of Labor. And the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education, who's responsible for overseeing Perkins and CTE across the nation, has come up with this Unlocking Career Success program. And they had some very interesting convenings around the country earlier this fall, in the sense that they were inviting not just educators, but employers and industry professionals, as well as secondary and post-secondary, really trying to get everybody to think about, well, what does it take to really help put students on the right path? And they've narrowed this down to like 4 key components. When you look at it, there are these 3 outcome components: this dual enrollment, the work-based learning participation, and the workforce credentials that are associated with what is referred to in Perkins terms as the measure of program quality. And Indiana is one of 3 states that through our CTE programs, we measure and monitor all 3 of these because we think that those 3 together give us the best picture of the success or the quality of a program or study. That 4th piece there on the side, though, is becoming ever more important in terms of the career advising and navigation. As you know, that career advising and navigation, career coaching was a big part of the 1002 bill, and is something that we are looking to improve, certainly something that we are looking to help it to be more effective in terms of how do we reach students and help students to understand what are the possibilities that they have. We want to kind of turn our attention, though, to those 3 outcomes and to kind of give you an overview of like what you would need to know, but also then to take a look at, well, what should we be thinking about in terms of, you know, like credential attainment or dual credit or work-based learning. And I want to start with what is a post-secondary credential. And a post-secondary credential really could be an industry recognized certification or a post-secondary degree or certificate. And as we look at this, you can see down at the bottom here, we're talking about different things when we're talking about post-secondary degrees and certificates. So Ivy Tech, VU, even some of our other schools, our other state schools now are getting into offering certificates at the post-secondary level. These might be anywhere from 15 to 30 credits. They can be shorter than that, but for CTE purposes, we really focus in on the ones that are anywhere between 15 to 30 credits. In the majority of cases, those certificates directly transfer into or apply towards the technical certificate and the certificate of graduation. Both of those are like Ivy Tech and VU terms, but what it essentially comes out to be is they represent 30 college credit hours. And then obviously, you know, at the high school level, a lot of times we can even get students all the way through an associate's degree. But the challenge or something that we always want to be considering is also, how does that stack into that bachelor's degree as well? We've put up here a couple of links that are embedded within this presentation as well. You will see the current grad pathways list, as well as what was the criteria for determining whether a criteria was on the list. And that really goes back to, again, this conversation around, well, what value does it provide to the student or the individual that is earning that credential? Something that we are working on as a kind of a cross-agency collaborative with not only DOE, but also post-secondary, as DWD, the Indiana Chamber. I mean, the list of stakeholders that are involved in this work is really quite extensive. But and this is a sample or an example, I guess, from another state that has started to kind of recategorize their post-secondary credentials. And instead of thinking that, what this really gets us away from is thinking that, hey, all credentials are the same. You know, like if I earn an industry recognized certification, well, that's the same as a post-secondary certificate. We are having conversations and working towards creating more of a tiered list of credentials that will help to better demonstrate the value to different individuals as they are earning these credentials. So you might see something like at the bottom of this where these are foundational certifications. Well, foundational certifications might be something like an OSHA certification that, you know what, everybody's got to get it. It's really valuable, but it's not necessarily going to be the thing that gets you employed. When we start talking about essential credentials, maybe that starts out with industry recognized certifications or some of those entry-level certifications, but then can build to additional industry certifications, as well as maybe some higher level industry recognized certifications. And then lastly, I think those career and advanced credentials, we want to make sure that part of that conversation is around these post-secondary certificates and degrees, and especially the stackability of those different credentials. So I think you'll hear more about this coming out in the very near future. But I also think that the importance of developing something like this is because it will impact the conversations that we are able to have with students as they are participating in a career pathway. And that's the most important piece of this. It's not the idea that we're creating another list or that we're creating a list for the sake of creating a list. It's what we're going to be able to do with that list, and how are we going to be able to better communicate that value. As we look at some considerations around credentials, I mean, this is really challenging. I mean, it is, there are thousands of credentials that are available from a variety of vendors and a variety of sources. And it is really hard sometimes to determine, well, which ones should I be going after, or which ones should we be providing for our students? But if you look at this, I mean, really start to ask yourself, does that credential provide learners with an employment opportunity? And a lot of times I would say not just any employment opportunity, but would it get them preferential treatment? Is it going to get them an interview if they have that credential? Is it going to allow them to be employed at a higher wage or something beyond the starting wage for that position? Will it help them to stand out? The second part of this is that credential stackable? Does that credential plus another credential, does it lead to career advancement? Will it allow you to, you know, in the examples like we were talking about, the post certificates and the degrees, that I can take the courses from the certificate, they all apply to the technical certificate or the certificate of graduation, that every one of those courses then applies to the associate's degree. And then that associate's degree, hopefully every, you know, as many courses as possible then apply to the bachelor's degree. That's true stackability. And what we've seen through some of the research studies is that's also what tends to drive students going on to post-secondary or to continue their post-secondary journey. Is the credential recognized by post-secondary education? Does it result in college credit? You know, we'll talk about this a little bit later on about how that may be able to use to help us to earn that college credit. Is that credential nationally recognized? And this, whether it's locally recognized or nationally recognized, if employers and industry don't recognize that credential and they don't see value in that credential, then that obviously limits the benefits that provides to a student. The second piece here that we want to talk about here is the post-secondary credit. And I am very fortunate in my position that I often get asked to speak on a national level about the success that Indiana has had with dual credits. We are recognized as a leader in this area, and I think it's the work around the priority course list, the fact that we make dual credit courses available to students for a maximum of $25 a credit hour. I think when we look at the transfer agreements, whether it's the core transfer library, the Indiana College Core, the TSAP programs, we have made a commitment in Indiana to dual credit and dual credit attainment, and it is really paying off. So just a couple things though, if you're not sure or how do I offer dual credit or what does it take, there's really one thing that we talk about with the CTE programs of study is there is a difference between alignment to a post-secondary course and the college credits for that course being available through dual credit. And what we mean by alignment is that course, the standards for that secondary course have been directly aligned to or utilize the standards and the competencies that are required for that post-secondary course. Whether that means that particular post-secondary courses available for dual credit is determined by the post-secondary faculty at each institution that is offering the program. But the other thing that you should be thinking about in terms of alignment and dual credit is it's not just dual credit for dual credit's sake. In other words, it's not just college credit for college credit's sake. It's the transferability and the applicability of that college credit. So what we're looking for there is, one, does it apply towards a credential? And two, can I transfer that credit to other institutions to make it more valuable and beneficial to me? Just real quickly, and I probably should have led with this, dual credit in Indiana, we really do have two different terminologies here, dual credit and dual enrollment. When we say dual credit, we are talking about taught by a secondary school faculty, commonly at a high school. And these are courses that the no more than the $25 per credit hour for courses that are on the priority dual credit crosswalk. Dual enrollment, this is when we're talking about being taught by a post-secondary faculty. This is oftentimes where a student goes onto a college campus, a high school student goes onto a college campus. But we are seeing more and more examples of where secondary schools are partnering with a post-secondary institution to provide dual enrollment opportunities for their students on campus and that are available to them. As we look at this, there really are some things, some additional considerations that go into being able to offer a dual credit course. The first thing is the secondary school eligibility. Just because that course, that post-secondary course would be available for dual credit, doesn't necessarily mean that every school would be able to offer that course for dual credit. You got to have a credentialed instructor. Your facilities and your materials have to be essentially the same as what is offered on the post-secondary campus. You might see that the curriculum that has to be followed is exactly the same as what's offered on campus. What it really comes down to, the simplest way to think about this is for a school, a high school, a secondary school, or a career center to offer a course through dual credit, they have to be able to deliver that course with the same level of quality as it is delivered on campus. So that's important to note, but it's also, how do we reach that level? Because we want to have as many of these opportunities available as possible. The one thing about instructor credentialing, and there's a lot of changes that are taking place right now around the credentialing requirements for dual credit instructors, but CTE has always been a little bit different than the core subjects. It did not always, it doesn't always require like a master's degree in the subject in order to be able to teach dual credit. We've always been able to utilize work experience and other factors when determining whether a CTE instructor could be credentialed. I share that because if in doubt, encourage your instructors to go through the process, reach out to your post-secondary institutions and ask them if, what do you require for that instructor to be credentialed? There may be situations where you have somebody that could be credentialed that is thinking, oh, I would never be able to do that. And then lastly, I just want to touch on this a little bit. I kind of alluded to this earlier when we were talking about credentials, industry certifications being aligned with post-secondary credit. Most of our institutions now are looking at the idea of these certification crosswalks. For example, if I take if I earn my CNA and I have my CNA certification, then I can crosswalk that back to be able to get transcripted credit through Ivy Tech, maybe VU, other institutions that can then be applied to other situations. So there may be a situation where, okay, as a school or career center, I don't have a credentialed instructor or something that doesn't mean that your students are eliminated from the opportunity to be able to earn that college credit. It just may be that we have to look for another opportunity, whether it's, can we do that through a certification, that if they earn the certification, they can crosswalk that back. Credit for prior learning is something else that we are exploring, investigating, trying to figure out how we can use that to the advantage of students as well. And then also, we are not limited to using high school instructors for CTE programs. And, you know, we've talked about this, whether it's, you know, the possibility of using dual enrollment, having post-secondary instructors come onto the high school campus, or sending students onto a post-secondary campus to take those credits or to take those courses, possibly going through third-party training providers or employers that can offer that credit is an option that's available to schools as well. And so again, just real quickly here, because we got about 5 minutes before we want to start diving into some questions, and we got one last thing to get through. I think that the idea of this is this related credits required for a post-secondary degree? What's the quality of the post-secondary instruction, or what's the quality of the instruction that's happening, you know, at the high school level? And then I think this is where we need to probably do a better job at what data exists regarding the completion rates, you know, for degree attainment for those that have earned those credits while they were in high school. I think this is going to be something that we will continue to look at over the next few years, especially given our success in earning college credit. How do we translate that success in earning college credit to credential attainment? Okay. So the last thing I want to touch on today here is the idea of work-based learning. We know that this is a high school graduation requirement, but it's also just, again, it's another one of our measures of program quality when we think about CTE. And CTE and work-based learning really are connected in so many ways. But oftentimes when we're talking about work-based learning, one person may be talking about things like, you know, guest speakers and job fairs, or jobs. Another person might be thinking of job shadowing and those types of activities. But then a third person might be thinking about internships or youth apprenticeships. So with some of the work that we've done is we've tried to create this career relevant learning continuum. This is, you know, this has been used in common with some other agencies. You know, for example, DOE had their 3E grants that they included this continuum in as well. This idea of the explore, the engage, and the experience. For CTE purposes, when we talk about work-based learning, we are specifically talking about those work-based learning capstone experiences like internships, youth apprenticeships, and registered apprenticeship programs. And we have been working with several groups to kind of come up with a definition that we can use that actually would help schools to define, like, all right, if I have students do this, would it count for work-based learning? And again, what would count for the employability skills requirement in graduation pathways is a little different than what we would count for work-based learning participation through CTE. But for that CTE piece, we define this as you can see here, that kind of that sustained interactions piece in real or simulated workplace settings. So there's a lot of, I feel like this is one of those things that you almost have to dissect each and every word, but just a couple of things that will help you to kind of think about this in terms of, am I really delivering a capstone experience? The first thing is, it's got to be a sustained interaction. We define this as going back to 75 plus hours, and we say in a single placement. The reason why we say a single placement, and this is key, is because if I do that 75 hours at, let's say, 4 different employers, the reality is that most of what I'm doing at each of those employers is just kind of an orientation or just kind of scratching the surface. We've got to get to at least 75 hours or so that we have, students and individuals that are participating in these experiences are doing meaningful tasks that are related to the occupation that they aspire to complete. And again, we say maybe it can be different departments, they can rotate around, but certainly has to be with a single organization. The other thing, and this may sound like a really bold statement, I don't mean it to be bold or controversial, but for it to be true work-based learning, it's got to be aligned and evaluated with the course training competencies, the related instruction piece, whatever you want to call them. And to do that, you got to have a training plan. And that training plan has to be aligned to the student's career pathway. It's got to be aligned to the course competencies, and it really does have to be aligned to the occupation itself. So if I have a training plan that all it does is focus on employability skills, that doesn't really meet our bar for work-based learning experiences. Not that it's bad. Every work experience is good. It's just that we have a little bit higher of a standard for what we count when it comes to work-based learning experiences. And then lastly, again, this is the same thing as every program of study. Does it result in career outcomes that are beneficial for students? Does it give them college credit? Does it help them earn a credential? Does it, do they get paid during the experience? So there's a lot of possibilities here when we're looking at work-based learning. And the last slide before we kind of jump into some of the questions, we just put together a real quick example of some of the established opportunities that students have to complete these work-based learning capstone experiences, at the high school level. And you can see we've got 3 different types of internships here. You've got modern youth apprenticeships, you've got pre-apprenticeship programs, and then even the possibility of students in high school age 16 to 24 can participate in some registered apprenticeship programs. So with that, I am going to, we're going to take some questions here. And while we are addressing some questions here, we just want to reiterate this idea that we do have some resources available on our websites talking with the career guide. So the first question that we've got here, I really like the career ladder examples. Are these posted somewhere that can be easily accessed? These would be great tools when speaking with high school students. We agree completely, Renee. Thank you for the question. And we have been working on these. We've had to do some work behind the scenes to kind of create the actual career ladders that go behind those. But this has got to be one of our goals this year, because every time we share those, that's what comes out of this. So as we're doing some work on updating the career guide, as we're preparing some other resources, we are going to put that at the top of the list to start sharing those career ladders. And when we do, we'll make sure that those are posted on our website. Unfortunately, they're not quite available yet, but we will start to share those here in the very near future. So thank you. Appreciate the compliment there. When we're talking about work-based learning, you list registered apprenticeships. What about non-registered apprenticeships? Yeah. What about like GE Aerospace and Terre Haute Lafayette have a very successful non-registered apprenticeship program? So one of the things that, if you are familiar with it, and you may have been involved in a school that has created what was known at the time as a state earn and learn, which was a seal, is what we referred to them as. This was an example of a non-registered apprenticeship program. The one thing when we're talking about the post-secondary space, though, we can really think of like modern youth apprenticeships, which were defined in 1002, do not need to be registered, and neither do the pre-apprenticeship programs. So we still have those options for non-registered apprenticeship programs to be utilized. we've tried to pull back from using the SEAL terminology because the Office of Work-Based Learning and Apprenticeships has some different standards for SEALs that we would not necessarily think of as being appropriate for the secondary level, like a 16 to 18-year-old. And if we were doing that, we would really try to steer a school or an employer to thinking about, well, can we do this as a pre-apprenticeship program, or can we do it as like a youth apprenticeship program? It's going to have all the same components, but there is this kind of additional aspect of, can we get college credit involved with that? So we don't necessarily call them non-registered programs, but there are some opportunities for us to take advantage of those. So the 75 hours is really just for the experience itself. When we first started doing this, we aligned to the requirements of graduation pathways, and that was the recommended number of hours for an experience to count for the employability skills part of this. We have stuck with that throughout the time. So that 75 hours could actually be spread out over the whole year. It could be spread out. It could be done in a single semester. I would even say that in some cases we've been asked, well, could I do that over 2 years? The answer would be yes. The only thing the other qualifying piece that I would say, if you're doing it over 2 years, that student has to be going back to the same organization, or it has to be the same placement in order for it to count for CTE. Again, the idea would be that whatever they did in the first year, they would be able to build upon that in what they're doing in the second year. So the 75 hours is just the minimum number of hours, can be spread out over pretty much any length of time. How can we submit feedback on the courses chosen for NL pathways to be appropriate for high school learners to align to a CTE completion? So there's a couple different opportunities here that you have available to you now. As far as what courses are included and required for the next level program of study pathways, that is really determined by the requirements of the post-secondary credential that we're aligning to. So when we look at that, that's where we start. Whatever courses are required for that post-secondary institution. And I would tell you that what we do is we just make a list of the post-secondary courses that are required for that credential. And then we just try to figure out how can we pair those courses up to fit within the program of study structure that we want to maintain, those 3 concentrated courses as well as that capstone course. There are options, though, that schools have the option of, either through the adoption process of a program of study or by submitting a non-standard course waiver with us, that they can ask for modifications to that program of study. If they want to rearrange some courses, if they want to maybe substitute in a course, they can do that through that process. The single greatest factor in whether those modifications would be approved or not is, what is the impact on the student's ability to earn the credential that's associated with that pathway. So if it doesn't, eliminate them from earning the college credit, if it doesn't eliminate them from earning those credentials, more times than not, those modifications are going to be approved. But I would also add to this, though, this is why we often get asked, well, can I pick this course from this pathway, from pathway A, and this course from pathway B, and maybe this course from pathway C, and use all those to create like a concentrator sequence? And generally speaking, no, we can't do that, because when we start picking and choosing courses from different pathways, those courses are not required for that credential then. And so what happens is the students may wind up with a lot of college credit, but none of that college credit, or not all of that college credit, is going to be applicable to that one credential, and it doesn't really move them down that path. I think we may have time for one more question if we have it or not. That's probably depends on the length of my answer. You mentioned simulated work-based learning, so skills learned within a course setting that simulates real work counts as WBL, correct? The answer to this is yes. A lot of times we call this school-based enterprises. We do think workplace simulations are a little bit more intense than some of the school-based enterprises. And the one thing that I would share on this is just really briefly, even with a workplace simulation, you still got to have a training plan for each student and make sure that each student gets an opportunity to learn and master the skills and for that occupation that are a part of that. But don't hesitate to reach out to us. We hope to be providing more work-based learning resources here in the very near future. So with that, I think that brings us to the end of our session. I would just remind you, the session was recorded. I am sure the slide decks will be available, but also any links that we put into the chat as far as resources that were available, and visit our website or contact us at cte@che.in.gov. Thank you very much for your attendance today. We appreciate it.